t-shirt louder.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that,
All right. Okay. So, all right. If characterized as moral, humans ideally champion equality, fairness, and a balance between themselves and the environment, none of which are occurring due to our unprecedented rate of unlimited consumerism. Take, for example, the football game you are all watching right now. You sit there consuming greasy junk food that you just purchased at one of the 500 concession stands while wearing an overpriced t-shirt decked out with your favorite team's logo. Sorry.
it's in the corner.
There we go. Okay. Decked out with your favorite team's logo, but yet you see this as completely normal. You probably aren't thinking about this, or this, or this, or this. You are quite simply a consumer. It's these material items and the consumption of resources that have built up urban centers and expanded large cities that constantly take over your land and destroy the environment without any compensation or limiting of regulation. Where are the carbon taxes? Where are the reflective surfaces? Where are the limits on excessive consumption? We are creating a vast disconnect between ourselves and the Earth's habitat. How can human morality ignore the inequity of something as simple as healthcare? There is no doubt that sub-Saharan Africa has the highest disease burden in the world. Children in Africa are dying by the thousands, while we in the U.S. are concerned with obesity and type 2 diabetes. The U.S. has an unprecedented rate of consumption of biomedical drugs derived from Earth's natural resources to treat sickness brought on entirely by an individual's personal consumption of useless material items. There are millions of Americans who cannot afford such basic health care, while others use and abuse it. Many local communities in Africa still rely on mobile health care clinics to receive health treatments and struggle against deadly diseases, such as malaria and HIV/AIDS.
At the same time, malaria rates are only projected to increase as summer months get hotter. And with the global population, the death toll could rise significantly. This isn't unique to sub-Saharan Africa either. We're seeing a steady increase in malaria in the southern United States as well. And there's a strong chance we'll see an explosion of it in the eastern United States as well in the summer months. Our imperative, thusly, isn't just for those we haven't met halfway across the globe, though that should never be a factor. It's for our grandma in New York that can't kill all the mosquitoes sneaking in her window. It's for Craig, a goofy, oblivious baby I met in South Africa who was orphaned by a mother with AIDS. It's for everyone. It's for the betterment of humanity. And with the increasing prevalence of malaria and other tropical diseases, HIV and AIDS and other various autoimmune disorders will result in far more preventable deaths. We need to distribute antiretrovirals and other medications at the same rate that we're distributing it to our people and make it affordable for everyone, but we do not do that.
We ask you to ask yourself, if you claim to be a moral human being on the grounds of religion or any other belief system, how can you let this global inequality continue? Okay, so maybe you're not religious. You don't believe in a higher power. Ask yourself, what do you believe in? Is your consumption more important than the lives of all those of a lower economic status? More important than sweatshop workers, subsistence farmers, the homeless, child laborers? Ask yourself, is your consumption more important than the future of the earth?
Whoa.
There we go. Oops, there it is. All right. So we as Americans have one of the highest standards of living relative to the rest of the world. At the same time, we suffer from the largest income inequality in the world, and it's only getting worse. In 1980, the average wage of the middle-class American was $16,000 a year in pre-tax income. That hasn't changed much in 3 decades, if at all. In 1980, the average wage of the 1%er was $428,000 a year pre-tax income. Today, it's over 3 times as much, and coming in at a whopping $1.3 million a year. Yet we sit back and play into the hands of those same 1%ers who, time and time again, manipulate and take advantage of the consumer. The rest of the world isn't much better off. Some of you might be familiar with the Gini coefficient, a metric to measure income inequality. Developed nations are facing unprecedented rates of income inequality, and that, more than ever, is allowing the rich to take advantage of the rest of the world, both through its people and its resources. And so you can see here, this is the average household income of the average American in different socioeconomic classes. And you can see just how much it has stagnated, very, very slowly increased for the average American, while the 1%er has just soared out astronomically. Changes in the share of income have also changed significantly, but even then, we are only part of the problem. And while our income inequality is huge, globally we're seeing a huge increase in it as well. China actually has a higher Gini coefficient than us, which is 0.48, even though they have a lower difference, in numbers. But you can see just how much the 1%er and even the 5%ers differ from the rest of the population. Just a little cartoon for it. And on to personal savings. Meanwhile, a recent study found that 76% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. We have such minuscule personal savings from wages, but consuming is valued as our means of participating in society, which forces us to spend the money we barely have. Even though personal savings have gone up recently, they're still such a small fraction of most people's incomes that it's hardly worth mentioning. Of that 76% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, 27% have absolutely no savings at all. I'll save you all the math. That's 65 million Americans living in the land of the free who can't escape their economic prisons. And yet, we're the lucky ones. 1.3 billion people worldwide, human, just like you and me, make around $1 a day. Many have to try to feed their families on that wage and still have some enjoyment out of life. Corporations exploit them for profit, though, utilizing cheap labor and resource-heavy developing nations without end. And so you can see here, these are our personal savings rates in the U.S. And with this, you can see it's maintained about a solid 2% rate of our disposable, personal income. And so with that, you can see how volatile it is, though, with recessions and the like. And as we've seen a slight increase in it recently, and we've gone up to 4%, it's still such a small fraction of our income that it's largely irrelevant.
Yeah, but it crashed considerably after 2009
It did.
to zero.
Yeah, and then negative in 2005. Yeah, that you can see here with the U.S. household debt versus personal savings. Even as personal savings is going up, our debt is going up astronomically. And so, really, it is irrelevant. Our fossil fuel usage, on the other hand, since the Industrial Revolution, fossil fuel usage has exploded. The way that the world works now, we rely on them to get to point A to point B and give us the fire of electricity. Yet, we've come so far since then. Renewables are becoming cheaper than fossil fuels, but the people pulling the strings are still turning a profit, so nothing changes. Report after report comes out, graph after graph gets made, and we learn from them when we can. But learning is only half the battle. If we don't ever truly act on that knowledge, we're slaves to it. Rising CO2 levels, along with other greenhouse gases such as methane and water vapor, are time and time again shown influencing the climate. But even many of those who believe in it ultimately ignore it and carry on business as usual. And so you can see here, the energy consumption in the United States has gone up considerably since 1776, understandably. You can see the Industrial Revolution starting in 1900 and our reliance on coal starting. And you can see just how much petroleum, natural gas, and coal runs our energy system. The global temperature and carbon dioxide rates, as far as proving that it actually affects climate change, we should look no further, really. So these are the CO2 rates. You can see how they're relatively low before the Industrial Revolution. It spikes up right at the start of it and around like the World War II era, and then since then it's just been exponential. And as you can see on the left here, that is Canada and Alberta, and on the right it's the exact same spot. And so it's turned into essentially a moonscape. And not only are we affecting ourselves, we are absolutely destroying our environment. Now, as far as air pollution goes, so there are absolutely consequences, not just for the environment, but for us as well. We need to speak out on this while we still can breathe comfortably. Our consumerism isn't just hurting the environment, it's hurting ourselves. Scientists found Asian air pollution contributed as much as 65% of an increase in Western ozone in recent years, according to NPR's Rob Schmitz. China and India, where many consumer products are manufactured, are the worst offenders. The blame, therefore, shouldn't be placed on other countries, or even our own. It must be taken on the individual to invoke change. You can see here smog in Shanghai. And this is actually in California. And so you can see here, this is the background ozone production that we naturally experience. And so human safe levels, like the limit we've essentially set is right here. But the human produced ozone levels are still putting us way above that and putting us at risk for various conditions such as lung cancer, asthma, what have you. And to go on to waste, more than half the world's population does not have access to regular trash collection, a grim statistic given the amount of garbage produced globally. Each year, nations generate 1.3 billion tons of waste, and that's expected to soar to 4 billion tons by 2100. And so you can see here, we absolutely generate the most per day. We live as if we are consuming, where we live on 5 Earths essentially, and we are just pumping it out like absolutely no other. But even then, it's not just on the consumer, absolutely not. In fact, quite the opposite. You can see in the gross national trash graph over there, industrial waste, so collective waste essentially, to build and run our society, that's 76% of the equation. And so it's not just, it's absolutely a matter of, recycling and being responsible as an individual, but we need to hold industry accountable. And this is a little picture of an African dump. And finally, onto resource depletion. So the more we consume, the less we have. Even the renewable resources that we rely on, like fish and timber, are being depleted. And you can see here, these are aquifers, phosphate and fisheries. And so you can see these are like projections essentially of like the current, I think 2010 is when that graph came out. And aquifers are, use of those is projected to rise numbers of percent, I think right around like 40%, as well as phosphate as well, which is used in a lot of industrial uses, and then fisheries, which we rely on for a very, very large portion of our food. Over 1 billion of the people in the world's population use it as their primary animal protein source. It's absolutely going to be a very, very huge problem in the coming years, and we need to address that. But yeah, so
Okay, but none of that.
something needs to change, otherwise the planet will change irreparably.
Okay, but none of those numbers really matter because with money you can buy anything you want. Money is freedom, and we can buy anything our hearts desire. And as our Constitution states, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So more money means more liberty to consume. It is our God-given right. And our superstores are divine sources. They're the home of everything we need, shipped across the world to supply or to fulfill our insatiable need for more. Our divine sources of stuff are stacked shelves upon shelves. Shelves upon shelves of the same thing in different packages from different brands. 2 for the price of 1. New package, same product. Less sodium, they all claim, giving us the choice of illusion. But really, there was no choice that you were going to buy one in the first place, was there? Just a matter of which one. So our divine sources wouldn't be so divine if they weren't available to us to purchase things 24 hours a day, 365 days a year from any of their 11,000 locations in the world. And they are dependable safe havens. A Walmart in Oregon is the same one as a Walmart in Ohio or Texas or China. They are exactly the same. They are a cookie cutter conformity, and there's no sense of place in any of these. So these giant multinational corporations are our divine sources here in our consumerist world. And every year the new model of a phone or TV, sports car, you name it, refrigerator, anything comes out. And it must be marketed as super amazing in order to convince people who already have one exactly like it that they not only want the next big thing, but they need it. They need it in order to be happy. It is, or wealthy, or beautiful, or successful. Because if you don't have that thing, you are an outcast in our material society. So the chief motive in continual consumption is our anxiety that we are missing out on what is in. And planned obsolescence and material things creates a dependence and conformity, especially on one brand. We can see that with Apple or certain car brands. Those are the best things in the industry. You need those things. And lastly, we have a special doctrine of ad campaigns that tell us that reinforces the idea that if we are not in the consumer circle, we are out. A new language full of short phrases but full of meaning has evolved, which has created a standard of behavior focused on quantity rather than quality or meaning. Consumers are rewarded with gold cards, gift cards, bonus points, and exclusive memberships for spending more. What do these bonus points even do? Why have a gold card? Well, that is beside the point, because you are in. You are getting a good deal and proving your loyalty at the same time.
So for the sake of time, we're not going to go to our commercial break, but these are just a few photos representing capitalism and the cult of consumerism. We live in a world surrounded by companies trying to brainwash you into needing their products. With sound, colors, and emotions, and repetitions every day, we are indoctrinated into this world of catchy jingles. But are they really as innocent as one might think? Every cult leader, drill sergeant, self-help guru, and politician knows that if you want to quiet all those pesky doubting thoughts in a crowd, get them to chant a repetitive phrase or slogan. This way they can't think, they can only buy. These are referred to as thought-stopping techniques, because for better or for worse, that is exactly what they do. Without harnessing your freedom, consumers are trapped in this endless cycle of wanting, spending, and wasting. You no longer make any of your own decisions, and ad executives years ago decided exactly what you want and what your life will live up to. If you don't own up to your mindless compliance, you will never escape. For this reason, the consumer mentality is still too often intact. You should mute the clicker. It's on the video.
Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us, so we ask you that you let us service your way. Oh.
Wait, click the Klondike one. Top corner. Sorry, I thought these would look faster. That's okay. That's okay, keep going. And so, consumerist lingo is a representative of repetitive acts in a cult society.
Alright, so as a consumer society, we are bound to a hopeless state of dependence on goods and services. What becomes most important is being part of the in crowd, no matter the reason, no matter the consequences, no matter the stakes. We are told by commercials, by sales, and by our divine source of money that the most important aspect of life is to own, to purchase, to collect, and to consume. We are brainwashed to line up for that next Apple product, or that video game, or that specialty ice cream, without a single thought. We follow the crowds, even if it means getting trampled in the doors of Walmart, without a single thought. Because we're called towards the divine light of the dollar sign, we have no need to think critically about our actions or desires. We follow where we're told to go, and we buy what we are told to buy. And from that, we define ourselves as successful, and we gain happiness. So, Black Friday consumer craze is linked to the lack of critical thinking. Also in our consumer culture, this is what progress looks like. The earth is created for our consumption, so why not continue taking? Cut down the forest to provide us with homes. Water your lawn to keep it green until all water sources are depleted. And don't worry about building that pipeline bound to burst and contaminate the source either. Mine for precious metals and frack into the earth for treasured petroleum until the earth crumbles beneath us. Global climate change will not stop us. We'll never run out of materials for our current humanity's desires and needs to produce our smartphones. Just keep drilling, keep producing until the people drown, our crops dry up, and our cities are covered in smog. Politicians, economists, journalists, environmental studies textbooks, the average Joe will all confirm that nothing is wrong with this model, so long as the economy built on the shoulders of the poor and the expense of the earth continues to thrive. And we, the people, will follow the money, our divine source, our all-powerful leader, in complete disregard of fact. With this cult-like mentality, we deny climate change in the face of truth for the sake of money, for the sake of consumption of goods. So thus, climate change denial is linked to denial of facts.
Consumerism, no less than any cult or religion, has the power to level individual difference and independence and render citizens into a homogeneous mass. Advertisements like "Enjoy Coca-Cola" are not merely cheerful suggestions, they are commands. Consumerism infantilizes us, alienates us from one another, and makes us apathetic as citizens. What's ironic is that even if you base your human worth not on social responsibility but on individual happiness, consumerism still fails us. The consumer economy only works if consumption of goods provides just enough temporary pleasure. That is, if happiness is infinitely deferred, so the buyers continue to buy more goods and services. By definition, the consumer never feels satisfied, rested, or happy, which creates that they will always feel that they are lacking. This pursuit of happiness results in anxiety. Many of us are aware of the cult of consumerism, and yet we still ignore it. This can end if together we decide to change. The system can only fail if those entrapped by it gain consciousness and remove themselves from it. We are wisest when united, and have the ability to operate as a global community to produce more informed decision-making. This will lead to a dissolve of global inequity and will be better for our planet. We will transform the ideas of success, wealth, and prosperity so that we can strengthen our relationship with the earth. We will understand that our earth is not as a resource, but as a life force. Thank you.